Exposed, the sinister secrets medieval peasants used to survive a spine-chilling famine year. Jenna's hands trembled as she ran her fingers over the ancient, tattered tome she had found in her grandmother's attic. A chill snaked down her spine, igniting deep-seated fears that mirrored the whispers swirling around their quiet Indiana suburb. The rumors claimed that the local government was hoarding food supplies, creating a fortress of desperation amidst the everyday monotony of suburban life. With her job gone and bills piling up, she felt suffocated by panic, each day pressing down harder than the last. Max and Lily, blissfully unaware, played on the living room floor, their laughter a sharp contrast to the murmur of fear drifting through the neighborhood. Yet Jenna couldn't shake the sensation that darkness stalked outside, waiting for the perfect moment to pounce. It was a neighbor's shadow that turned her blood cold, not just strange shapes lurking by the trees, but familiar faces peeking from behind curtains, eyes wide with secrets. Were they watching? Evaluating? The book promised survival through bizarre survival rituals. Exposed. The sinister secrets flashed through Jenna's mind. As she read through the ancient practices, animal sacrifice, incantations, her heart raced, torn between disbelief and desperate hope. If it meant keeping her children fed, could she risk delving into this madness? Dismissing her hesitation, she whispered the strange chants late into the night, the words almost alive on her tongue. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue, but something stirred within her suburban neighborhood. Jenna awoke one night to rustling in the yard. Heart pounding, she peeked through the window. Shadows flickered, figures moved between the trees, blending seamlessly with the night. The hairs on the back of her neck stood tall. Was it just animals? Or was their community hiding a deeper darkness? The evening seemed to hold its breath, and she couldn't shake the feeling. The predators weren't just creatures in the dark, they were her neighbors, friends. The horror pooled in her stomach. The next day, children from across the street vanished for hours, only to reappear shaken, their eyes wide as saucers. Food began disappearing from her own pantry, her children oblivious to the mounting fear. Every time Jenna turned a corner, she caught fleeting whispers through the air, a child's giggle that turned into a chill, a sudden breeze that made the hairs on her arms stand tall. As the days slipped by, the town grew quiet, thick with suspicion. Families that once shared barbecue plates now averted their eyes. Muffled conversations broke off as she approached. Whispers followed her, and shadows deepened. What were they all keeping from each other? Was it survival that turned friends into foes, or something darker lurking just at the edge of their world? Every strange occurrence, the cold drafts that swept through her house, the shadows creeping across her windows, the creeping sense of betrayal from those she thought she knew, built toward an inevitable confrontation. She felt eyes on her, familiar yet foreign. There was a power hidden in the whispers that blew through the neighborhood, connecting the keepers to their collective downfall. As Jenna looked out into the encroaching darkness one evening, a bitter chill gripped her heart. She felt it then, the heavy weight of each choice she would have to make. The shadows stretched longer, the night deepened, and she wondered, could she unravel the sinister web woven around her family before they were trapped in it forever? The darkness was closing in, and time was running out. Jenna's heart raced as she clutched the book tighter, the faint glow of the street lamp barely pushing back the encroaching dark. The antics of her children faded into a haunting echo, muffled by the crawling dread that now crept into the corners of her mind. She couldn't ignore it any longer. This was more than just fear of the unknown. It felt personal, like each ominous whisper pointed a finger at her, demanding she unearth the town's hidden sins. As the days passed, every interaction with her neighbors felt charged, drenched in a tension that hung heavy in the air. Becky from 2 doors down, who used to share recipes and gossip, no longer made eye contact. Mr. Thompson down the street, once amiable, shot her a knowing glance filled with contempt and something else fear? With every suspicious exchange, Jenna's nerves frayed a little more. It appeared the once close-knit community was splintering, and she stood at the center of it all, paralyzed. Late one night, she haunted the attic again, desperation pushing her deeper into the pages of the tome. Chants swirled in her mind like a cyclone, each word a grave invitation to darkness. Despite her instincts screaming against it, Jenna felt drawn to the rituals. There may be power here, the kind to break through the web of fear suffocating them all. She could feel that potential humming against her skin, enticing yet terrifying. Suddenly, a series of thuds echoed from downstairs, shaking her from her thoughts. Jenna's breath caught, icy fingers racing down her spine as she crept toward the staircase. With every heartbeat, she feared what she might find. She rounded the corner, and a dim light seeped through the living room doorway. Another noise, a scraping sound. Max? Lily? She whispered, the words fragile in the gloom. Silence. She crossed the threshold, and the sight before her froze her breath. The living room was bathed in the ghostly glow of the television, images flickering wildly across the screen. But it wasn't the screen that gripped her. On the floor lay remnants of what had once been her children's snacks, crumbs of uneaten food and crumpled wrappers scattered like leftover remains of a feast. An empty plate sat on the coffee table, but it wasn't just empty. It was smeared with dark, staining marks. A wave of nausea crashed over her as she knelt to inspect it. The smell hit her too late, a metallic stench mingled with rot. Just as she pulled away, the sound of soft giggles drifted from the corner of the room. Mommy. Lily's voice rang with a sweetness that turned bitter in Jenna's gut. Look what we found. Her daughter stood with Max at the far end of the room, shadows falling lightly over their grinning faces. In their tiny hands, they clasped twisted remnants of bloodied, feathered objects, sacrifices fashioned from some unseen horror. Where did you find those? Jenna whispered, creeping toward them, the panic rising. Her feet felt heavy, every step to her children a commitment she feared making. Outside. Lily beamed, her eyes wide with innocent glee. They were waiting for us. Jenna faltered, the ground beneath her trembling. Waiting for you? What do you mean? The chill gripped her tightly, the world felt impossibly off-kilter. Everyone took something, Max chirped, his voice high with excitement. And brought it back to share. The atmosphere shifted sharply, as shadows twisted unnaturally and whispers curdled around her ears. It was as if the very walls were alive, watching, assessing. Jenna's heart pounded in her chest like a war drum. But just as the clarity pierced through the fear, her thoughts caught in a wave of utter realization. What have they done? Jenna gasped, the weight of dread descending like a shroud. The darkness around danced mockingly, breathing in and out, as if hungry for more. The line between innocence and abyss blurred before her eyes, a terrifying surge of protective instinct unfurled within her. The next step was clear, plunging her deeper into the dark. She needed answers. Secrets were weaving tighter in their little neighborhood, and Jenna would unearth them no matter what she had to face. But as she steeled herself, a chilling thought pierced her mind. What if the truth was worse than the whispers she feared? What if her children were not the only ones chosen? With a shiver coursing through her, Jenna turned to her kids, who were still crouched over the bizarre items. We need to talk to the neighbors, find out what's really going on. As she spoke, a shadow stretched further into the room, alive and almost sentient. The sense of blood and earth seeped deeper into her senses. Outside, the unmistakable sound of rustling leaves mingled with the start of something greater. What lay ahead? She had no choice but to follow the trail woven through the fear. But what she didn't know was, some secrets were never meant to be uncovered. The night felt alive, a creature thrumming with anticipation. Jenna squeezed her eyes shut for a moment, pushing back the panic. She was losing control. Each second weighed heavily as she stood there, the twisted remnants in her children's hands a vile reminder that the place which once felt safe had turned into a labyrinth of shadows and unseen monsters. Stay close to me, she instructed, her voice steady yet laced with urgency. She led Lily and Max out of the living room, the lingering stench of decay shadowing their every move. As they stepped into the hall, she paused, scanning the eerily silent home. "What do we do, Mommy?" Max's small voice trembled. "Talk to the neighbors," she repeated, her heart racing ahead. "We need to find out exactly what's going on." With a hesitant nod, the three of them navigated to the front door, Jenna's fingers brushing against the wood as if it might offer some form of protection. Outside was a different world. A chill had settled in the air, and the moon hung low, murky clouds swirling around it like a cloak draped over an unseen figure. They ventured into their yard, the grass crunching beneath their feet. Shadows played tricks, elongating against the waning moonlight. Jenna glanced toward the houses that lined the street, silently pleading for someone to emerge. But there was only silence, the kind that amplified the sound of her own heartbeat. "Which house first?" Lily asked, her innocent gaze scanning their neighbors' windows, dim and unwelcoming. "Let us start with Mrs. Jameson," Jenna decided. Before she could reconsider, she headed toward the weathered fence that separated their homes. It creaked as they approached, almost sounding a warning, knocking gently. Jenna's heart pounded like a war drum. She could hear her breath quickening in cadence with the anticipation rising in her throat. Nothing stirred. She knocked again, harder this time. "Mrs. Jameson?" Jenna called. "It's Jenna. Can we come in?" The door creaked open, revealing the frail figure of the elderly woman, her face a tapestry of wrinkles and worry. But her eyes were anything but welcoming. They darted past Jenna, landing on the children with an unsettling intensity. "What are you doing here?" Mrs. Jameson's voice quaked, thin as a thread in a storm. "Please," Jenna pressed, trying to steady her voice. "I need to know what's happening. There's something wrong in the neighborhood." Mrs. Jameson hesitated, her lips pursed tightly. "You should turn back, dear. You don't know what you're asking." Jenna's stomach dropped. "I've seen things my children brought back." "What are they part of?" The older woman regarded Lily and Max, who peered shyly from behind Jenna's coat. "You should keep them away, for everyone's sake," she whispered, her eyes wide with unspoken dread. As Jenna opened her mouth to protest, a sudden rustling pierced the air, a frantic noise cutting through the still night. "What was that?" Max squeaked, leaning closer to Jenna. In that moment, the world around them seemed to hold its breath. Mrs. Jameson stepped back, terror flashing across her face. "You must go. Leave now," she urged, her voice trembling. Jenna stepped back instinctively, grasping her children's hands tightly. They turned to flee, but the alley between the houses came alive with frigid wind, stirring leaves in a macabre dance. It felt as if unseen eyes were upon them, scrutinizing. Just as they sprinted toward their home, a shrill cry echoed in the night, a sound like no other, distinct yet otherworldly. The call hung heavy, visceral, shattering the fragile demeanor of the night. "What's happening?" Lily cried, her small hands trembling in Jenna's grip. "We need to go. We need to get inside," Jenna shouted as they raced back. The fear thrummed through her veins, burning hot. Every instinct screamed that they were being hunted. Inside, she closed the door with a heavy thud, the echo reverberating in the stillness. But then, the door rattled violently, a relentless pounding that sent them jumping back. Jenna felt her breath catch. "Mommy!" Max sobbed, eyes wide with terror. "Whatever is out there, we mustn't let it in," Jenna whispered fiercely, pushing against the door with all her strength. As the knocks crescendoed, a cold breath wafted through the cracks, whispering forgotten names and broken promises, secrets long hidden clawing their way back to the surface. Jenna's resolve faltered, doubt creeping into her mind. They were not safe. Not yet. What had she unleashed by simply seeking the truth? Through the door and into the night, other residents were stirring, shadows merging and separating under the pale light as if they were preparing for something dreadful. What Jenna didn't know was that they were all called to the ritual, each drawn into a fate darker than she could ever imagine. A chilling thought knotted her stomach. Were they already too late? As the pounding continued, Jenna stared into the encroaching darkness, her heart racing anew. What secrets had she awakened? What price would she pay to protect what was left of her family? The whispers, they were growing louder, more insistent. And Jenna realized, sometimes, the truth is more terrifying than the whispers of the dark. Would she take that final step into the abyss to discover it? The ground beneath them trembled as unseen forces gathered, and Jenna knew a reckoning was coming. The door shuddered again, the sounds echoing like thunder in the quiet of their home. Jenna could feel her heart pounding in sync with the merciless blows. She tightened her grip on the doorknob, her knuckles turning white. "Stay back," she hissed, her voice barely a whisper but fierce enough to signal her terror. "Mommy, I'm scared." Max's voice trembled, and Lily clutched his arm, her wide eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Just breathe. I'm right here," she promised, though her own chest felt tight, each breath a fight against the rising tide of panic. The knocking stopped. An oppressive silence engulfed them, a void that seemed to stretch and grow. Jenna guarded her children, her back braced against the door, the wood cool against her skin. Outside, she could feel something looming in the darkness, pressing against the edges of her sanity. She wanted to run, to bolt up the stairs, and hide like they used to during storms. But the knowing dread etched across the walls felt more alive than fear itself. They weren't just hiding from a storm, they were hiding from something that hunted, that called. "What if it gets in?" Max whispered, his voice so small it barely cut through the silence. "It won't," Jenna lied, trying to sound confident though her mind screamed otherwise. She glanced out the nearest window. Shadows moved in the street, faceless figures pacing like trapped animals ready to pounce. The air thickened with an uneasy mix of desperation and something darker, something that grinned in the dark. Then, through the nothingness, she noticed movement beyond the threshold. A figure emerged, its silhouette taut and unnatural as it loomed closer. Jenna's breath hitched. "Mommy, look!" Lily squeaked, pointing, her small finger trembling. "Don't!" Jenna shouted, instinctively pulling them further away. They crowded into the corner of the room, trying to become small, to become invisible, wishful thinking in a nightmare. The figure reached for the door, and a low sound rumbled like an approaching storm. "Let me in," it whispered, voice layered with a sickening melody, like an invitation and a threat all in one. "I'm just looking for a way home." "No!" Jenna shouted, panic lifting her body. "You can't come in." A soft laugh filled the air, the kind that sends shivers racing down the spine. It was as if the voice knew her fear, feeding off it. The door trembled again, rattling violently this time, coaxed by some unseen force. And then it stopped. Silence draped over them, so thick it felt almost corporeal. Jenna dared to breathe, her list of desperate thoughts spiraling into a chaotic mess. What if this wasn't just happening to them? What if every home in the neighborhood was under siege? She could only imagine a chain reaction, neighbors succumbing, embers dying out one by one, leaving only darkness behind. "Look at the window." Max's eyes locked onto the glass as something dark shifted in the reflection. "Close your eyes," Jenna ordered, but it was too late. Each child was transfixed, drawn deeper into the reflection that warped reality. Shadows tactically moved outside, peering in, their intentions palpable. A sudden screech shattered the night, the sound twisting into laughter, wrapped in malice and insanity. Jenna's mind reeled. This wasn't merely a prank from the neighborhood kids, it was something more insidious. "Mommy, make it stop!" Lily cried, tears streaming down her cheeks, and in that moment, Jenna felt a surge of power from her maternal instinct rising to combat the encroaching darkness. She placed her hands firmly on the cold doorknob and took a deep breath. "We're not afraid," she shouted, surprising even herself. But inside, the fear roared, desperate to break free, but then, from outside, shadows collided, and a sudden scream erupted into the night, muffled but unmistakably human. The sound was followed by a cacophony of chaos as the tranquility of the neighborhood shattered like glass drawn by the sinister call. "Mommy!" Max leaped into her arms, and Jenna felt her heart racing. "Do we call for help?" Lily whimpered, glancing at the phone. On the table as if it was a beacon of salvation. "Help?" she echoed softly, realizing that no one would answer. Because whatever evil was drawing them in had likely silenced the entire neighborhood, and in that chilling realization, an unsettling thought flickered in her mind: what if the truth was darker than she could ever imagine? Jenna's resolve hardened. "We need to get to the basement now. If we hide, we might survive." But the moment they turned to retreat, the door splintered, cracks spiderwebbing across it, and for an instant, she felt the ominous gaze of a hunting predator. "Mommy, it's coming!" Max screamed, her body reacted before her mind could catch up. "Run!" she yelled, sprinting toward the staircase, but in the back of her mind, she wondered, would they escape the door? Or would whatever lay behind it finally come crawling in for them? They bolted through the hall, their footsteps pounding against the wooden floor, the sound amplified by the clamoring uncertainty that swirled around them. Jenna could feel the walls of their sanctuary closing in, every shadow twisting into a monstrous figure. The basement door stood ahead, partially open, a black maw waiting to swallow them whole. She shivered at the thought of descending into its depths, yet it felt like their only chance. They had to escape the malevolent presence creeping closer, closer. "Mommy!" Max cried, straining to keep up as Jenna's grip tightened around Lily's wrist. "We're almost there," she reassured, knowing her own fear was palpable, a living thing between them. The door frame loomed large, heavy and unyielding, yet Jenna propelled her children forward. Just as they reached it, a violent crash erupted behind them, the door splintering wider as if a wild beast was eager to break free. There was no turning back. They hurled themselves into the basement, the air thick with stale dust and the scent of forgotten memories. Jenna slammed the door behind them, the echo of the lock clicking into place reverberating like a heartbeat in the still darkness. Their sanctuary was a flimsy barricade against the horrors outside, yet it marked a momentary reprieve from the chaos. But as they huddled behind the old sofa, breaths ragged, Jenna realized the basement held its own secrets. The low, flickering light bulb cast faint shadows against the brick walls, revealing shelves lined with jars full of strange, unidentifiable substances. A chill raced through her as she peered closely at a label that read salvage. What had their family hidden down here? "Mommy, what is going on?" Max whimpered, burying his face into her side, while Lily crouched beside them, her body trembling like a string pulled too tight. "I don't know," she whispered, panic rising again as a faint scratching sound echoed from above. It wasn't the wind. It was precise, deliberate. The thing outside was searching for them. With a racing heart, Jenna scanned the dim space as if it could offer a sliver of solace. Canning supplies and dusty old furniture were forgotten relics of everyday life once filled with warmth. But now, here they were, isolating themselves from whatever terror lurked above. Then she spotted it. A small, rusted hatch in the corner. What lay beyond? Could they somehow escape? This riddle fogging her mind hinted at escape but also dread a choice to dive deeper into questions rather than retreating back toward danger. "Jenna!" A voice rang, low and haunting, reverberating from somewhere near the stairs. "I just want to play." Terror seized her. It wasn't just a whisper, it was a seductive, twisted melody beckoning her to join. "No! Stay back!" She shouted into the darkness, the sound of her own voice feeling as fragile as glass in the wake of that taunting tone. "Mommy, who is that?" Lily's fragile voice broke through the haze, snapping Jenna's thoughts into sharp focus. She tasted fear at the back of her throat, bitter and pressing. "It's nothing, sweetie. Just stay close." Yet the insistent scratching grew louder, punctuated by fervent whispers, forming a sinister chant. That voice, the melody taunting her senses, haunted her even more than the shadows outside. "Let me in, let me play." Jenna stood abruptly, her protective instincts screaming. They couldn't stay here, not with whatever was outside bolstering its hunger. "Okay, kids, listen carefully. We might need to move again," she said, her voice steadying, despite the chaos within. But just as she took a step toward the hatch, the basement lights flickered violently, casting ominous shadows that danced wildly across the walls. Jenna stilled, her heart hammered painfully. "Mommy," Lily whispered, fear quaking in her voice. Then the door creaked open a fraction, a thin wedge of light spilling in, illuminating the outlines of two small figures just beyond, features obscured by the darkness. The children gasped. "Join us," they intoned in unison, their voices rising over each other as though caught in a wicked song. Jenna's breath caught, the sinister pull of that melody resonated deep within her. A terrible question etched itself into her mind: what if whatever lay beyond was already within, feeding on their fear? She shook her head violently, heart pounding with primal instinct. "We want to play. We want to." But the children only gazed into the void, their expressions caught in a trance, as if the darkness whispered promises only they could understand. Desperation surged through Jenna. She planted herself firmly between her kids and the unsettling darkness, but she knew, deep down, the true horror was yet to come. And then it clicked, cutting clarity laced with dread. The whispers, she muttered, trying to calm herself. "They're drawing something. But what? And was it something they could face together, or was it already too late for any of them?" Jenna's blood ran cold as she stared into the encroaching shadows, willing them to reveal their secret, knowing that the answers may come at a price. What if those playful whispers became an insatiable hunger that couldn't be quelled? "Mommy," they both murmured, pulling her focus back to their entranced faces, and just like that, the darkness thickened, wrapping around them, ready to unveil the wicked truth hidden in plain sight. The whispering intensified, wrapping around Jenna, heavy and suffocating. It felt as if the shadows themselves breathed, drawing closer, enfolding them in a shroud of dread. "Mommy!" Max cried again, his small voice trembling, the innocent urgency of a child striking starkly against the sinister atmosphere. For a split second, a flicker of courage surged in Jenna's veins. She would not let them take her children, not now, not ever. "Stay behind me, both of you," she instructed, inching towards the small hatch in the corner, the only conceivable escape route. The air grew colder with each step, tendrils of fear gripping her heart. She clenched her jaw, determined to mask her terror from the kids. As she neared the hatch, the voices morphed into chaotic laughter, a cacophony of youthful glee undercut with something cruel and jagged. The figures at the door shifted, the light around them warping, distorting the children's faces into something grotesque. Their eyes glimmered hollow, enticing voids. "Playtime," the shadows chimed, their voices now layered with glee, echoing against the basement walls like a haunting lullaby. "We want to play." Jenna stumbled back, the ground beneath her suddenly feeling unsteady. "No!" she yelled, clenching her fists as a wave of heat rushed through her. "You're not real. You want to take us." The laughter crescendoed, high-pitched and mocking, as if the darkness itself reveled in her fear. A gust of rancid air swept past her, chilling her bones, making her shiver uncontrollably. "Mommy!" Lily's voice barely pierced through the mocking sounds, her small hand reaching out, as if seduced by unseen forces. "Lily, don't!" Jenna lunged forward, grabbing her daughter and pulling her back close. "We have to go now." But just as they turned towards the hatch, the moment froze in sickening clarity. The door behind them swung wider, forcing the dim bulb to flicker in a frenzy, and with it came the unmistakable scent of something rotten and foul, decayed life clinging to every surface. The discovery of the hatch felt like a teasing glimpse of freedom, but it also loomed like a gaping maw, inviting but threatening. "No, it's a trap," she muttered under her breath, debating the lesser of two evils. The hushed giggles followed them, snickering with insidious glee. As they pressed closer to the hatch, Jenna's mind raced. What was down there? Would it lead them to salvation or even deeper horrors? "Mommy. We want to go," Max whimpered, his wide, frightened eyes pleading with her. "Not yet," she shot back, panic seeping into her voice. Only the faintest whispers of hope ignited within her, a spark buried beneath the overwhelming dread. The laughter morphed into a singular voice, more distinct, more sinister. "Join us, Jenna, just a little longer. You could play with us, too." With a surge of adrenaline, Jenna pushed the kids back slightly, focusing her gaze on the figures that still hovered in the light spilling from the threshold. There were 2 of them, and even from the darkness, she could nearly discern their shapes, child-sized, yet predatory, with eyes that seemed to swallow the light whole. "No!" Jenna roared, every fiber of her being igniting in a defensive fire. "Get back!" But the moment she shouted, the shadows lunged, closing the distance and enveloping them in chilling darkness, their laughter ringing in her ears like a malignant hymn. Jenna's instincts flared, and without hesitation, she grabbed the rusty hatch handle, ripping it open. A pungent odor of earth and decay surged forth, a desperate temptation mingling with acrid fear. "Hold on to me," she commanded, gripping her children with fierce resolve as she propelled them forward into the abyss below. The darkness came alive, engulfing them in a suffocating embrace, their screams drowned by the echo of laughter that faded just as abruptly as it appeared. They plunged into the depths, the cellar's weight pressing around them, and Jenna couldn't shake the horror that curled in her gut, the gnawing dread that whatever they had escaped, something far worse still awaited them. As they stumbled down the damp, crumbling steps, a chilling realization dawned on Jenna. What if there was no escape from the darkness? What if they were already lost? The hatch above slammed shut, sealing their fate in inescapable gloom. And just as they thought they had descended far enough, a glimmer of light pierced through the darkness ahead, a flickering flame that called to them, illuminating something else, something that had been waiting for them all along. What awaited them beyond that flickering light would unravel all they thought they knew about fear and survival. The flickering light danced like a beacon through the stifling dark, a haunting flame that beckoned Jenna and her children forward. She gripped Max and Lily's hands tightly, guiding them through the cold, damp air that clung to their skin like an unwelcome embrace. Each step felt heavier, a pull towards the unknown that quickened her heartbeat. "What is that?" Lily whispered, her voice barely a tremor above the thick silence. Fear laced her words, making Jenna's stomach churn. As they drew closer, the light revealed a narrow passage, remnants of ancient stone walls lining the edges, slick with moisture and debris. Something about it felt wrong. "Stay close," Jenna urged, her voice steadier than she felt. The silence was oppressive, even the shadows seemed to hold their breath. They pressed on, and with each inch, the air grew warmer, carrying an unsettling mix of sweetness and rot. Almost instinctively, Jenna covered the kids' noses with her hands, instinctively warding off the sickening odor. As they crossed the threshold, Jenna's heart dropped. The flickering light came from a large, gnarled candle resting on a makeshift altar fashioned from broken stones. Surrounding it were odd trinkets, what looked like teeth, tangled strands of hair, and small, rusted toys. Each object seemed to pulse with a dark energy, the air crackling with unspoken horrors. "Look, Mommy." Max pointed, his small finger shaking slightly. "It's like a treasure." "Not treasure," Jenna snapped, pulling him back. "More like a warning." Suddenly, the candle flickered violently, shadows stretching and clawing at the walls, snatching at memories of safety. The laughter echoed again, as if mocking her fear. "Join us," the voices sang, wrapping around her in an unsettling harmony. It wasn't just malevolent laughter now, it was the sound of children. "Mommy, why are they laughing?" Lily asked, her small voice quaking, wide eyes searching her mother for reassurance. "Because they think we're playing," Jenna murmured. She felt the texture of the moment shift, something was coiling painfully tight, a realization that nearly choked her. The implications of what they saw suddenly felt crystal clear. "We don't belong here," Jenna hissed as she scanned the altar for an escape. Her instincts screamed at her, urging her to take the children and run. As she turned, the shadows shifted again, forming a wall behind them, closing the route they had just entered. "No! No! Please, let us go!" Her voice splintered into cries, a desperate plea that echoed around the stone chamber. A chilling stillness fell, thick as velvet, before the shadows began to melt into human figures' faces, resembling what once might have been children, but now twisted with hunger and despair. Their hollow eyes shimmered with a grotesque intensity, calling to Jenna with an almost hypnotic pull. "Playtime," they whispered, a chorus of the lost. Jenna's hands trembled, and she felt the warmth drain from her body, leaving only the cold grasp of terror. "Mommy! I want to go home," Max pleaded, tears streaming down his cheeks. "We will," she promised fiercely, turning to face the figures. With every ounce of courage, she squared her shoulders. "You're not taking us. We're not your toys." The shadows paused, their laughter stilled, and for a moment, it felt as though the world held its breath. The figures exchanged wary glances, doubt flickering across their twisted faces. Then the candle flared brighter, casting an eerie light that illuminated something else in the corner, a door, previously hidden in the shadows, now standing ajar and beckoning. A rush of hope surged through Jenna, mingling painfully with reckless terror. "Run!" she shouted, launching toward the door, pulling the frightened children along. The laughter snapped back to life, furious now, piercing and chaotic. Every footfall felt like a race against time, each shadow lunging closer. As they barreled through the door, Jenna could hear the giggles shifting to screams of frustration behind them. The world beyond was disorienting, painted with an unearthly glow. But as they stumbled forward, Jenna's heart sank. What lay ahead was neither the solace they sought nor a path to safety, but another horror altogether, and just as they crossed the threshold, the door slammed shut behind them with a finality that drowned out the laughter, leaving only the echoes of their own panicked breaths. Jenna braced herself for whatever twisted reality awaited them beyond the next flickering flame. What had they awakened, and would they ever escape from the clutches of the playtime shadows? Jenna blinked, trying to adjust to the new surroundings. The air felt thicker here, almost viscous, wrapping around them like a veil. Stalactites dripped from the ceiling, splattering onto the ground with wet, echoing sounds that seemed to pulse in rhythm with her racing heart. "Where are we?" Max's voice quivered, as he clutched her hand tighter. I don't know," Jenna replied, her stomach twisted in knots. A sudden chill shot through her bones as she scanned their new prison walls of slick, dark stone that seemed to absorb the dim light. Bright flashes came from further down the passage, illuminating twisting shadows that danced tauntingly. "Stay close," she breathed again, her voice wavering. With hesitation, Jenna edged forward, keenly aware of every shuffling sound, every fleeting shadow that flitted across the walls. A whisper brushed against her ear, soft but chilling, like a breath from the grave. "You shouldn't have come," it taunted. She brushed it off as adrenaline, pushing onward, urging her children to keep pace. They reached the source of the flickering light, a flat stone slab where the remnants of offerings sat, similar to the altar before but more grotesque. Smashed dolls with painted faces glared back at them, their eyes wide with horror, and above them, old bones hung like forgotten trophies. Rotting flowers surrounded the base, their sickly sweet scent mingling with decay. Mommy Lily whimpered, her little fingers trembling as she pointed. "What happened to those toys?" Just old things," Jenna murmured, though a chill settled in her gut. This wasn't just an old place, it felt alive. With every inhale, she could sense the memories of despair that saturated the very air around them. It was then that the ground beneath them began to tremble, a deep rumble building as the walls seemed to pulse, narrowing slightly. "Jenna! Look out!" Max screamed as a shadow loomed over them. Jenna spun just in time to see one of the childlike figures they had escaped behind them, its skeletal fingers reaching out, stretching, gaping mouth open in that uncanny, silent scream. In a flash, Jenna yanked her children out of its icy grasp, adrenaline coursing through her veins. Run! She cried, yanking them down another dark fork in the tunnel, heart pounding against her ribcage. As they sprinted, the laughter gained volume, echoing ominously around them, the shadows chasing closer, angry and gleeful all at once. They darted into another room, a cavernous space illuminated by a sickly glow, fleshy walls pulsing and bobbing. "Oh no," Jenna gasped. Her breath caught in her throat. Scattered across the floor were remnants of others who had passed through, torn clothing, scratched names, the faint impressions of small hands reaching upward in panic. "Is this where they?" Lily whispered, eyes wide, voice trembling like a leaf, terror coloring her cheeks pale. "Don't look. Keep moving," Jenna commanded, fighting against the lump rising in her throat as they maneuvered through the litter. The air was thick with despair, each breath tasting metallic. "Mommy! What if they catch us?" Max's question hung in the air, a blade of fear cutting sharp through the oppressive silence. "They won't. Just stay with me," she urged, but even as she said the words, doubt gnawed away at her. The laughter crescendoed behind them, taunting, relentless. Then, out of the chaos, a figure appeared at the end of the chamber, a man tall and cloaked in darkness. His face obscured by shadows, he seemed to be waiting. As Jenna and her children surged toward him, their escape routes evaporating behind them, she discerned movement in the darkness around him. His eyes glimmered, cold and predatory, and a slow, sadistic smile spread across his face. "Welcome to the true game," he boomed, his voice echoing ominously through the walls. Jenna froze. The candlelight flickered one last time, and a cold dread descended over her. What kind of game awaited them? Would they ever find a way to break free from this purgatory? The laughter grew louder, a cacophony of joy twisted in agony, and in that moment, Jenna understood this was only the beginning. Jenna froze, trapped in the sickly glow that enveloped them. The shadowy figure before them seemed to expand, his presence suffocating. She could feel the drumming of her heart against her chest, each thump echoing like a war drum in a silent fortress. "Mommy!" Lily whimpered, her voice shaking as she clung to Jenna's leg. Max's hand was an iron vice around hers, his knuckles white, eyes wide with horror. "What's the game?" he whispered, his breath hitching. The cloaked man stepped forward, his movements deliberate, almost languid. "Oh, it's simple," he hissed, inching closer. "You gather, you run, and the shadows gather, hungry for the lost, the forsaken." His words dripped with venom, filling the air with a thick sense of dread. Forcing her legs to move, Jenna pulled her children back, but the laughter seemed to paralyze her. It echoed, ricocheting off the fleshy walls, wrapping around her like a predator's embrace. "You have to stop this," she shouted, desperation clawing at her throat. "Stop?" A sharp smile sliced through the darkness, revealing teeth too white, too sharp. "No, my dear. This is only the beginning. You're not just players, you're the main course." His laughter rang out, and with it, the cave howled in agreement. Lily clamped her hands over her ears, eyes wide with fear. Jenna's heart plummeted. This creature, this nightmare, had seen right through them. They weren't escaping, they were just part of a twisted feast. "Run this way," she shouted, yanking her children toward a narrow passage off to the side, the very darkness poised to swallow them whole. The shadows stretched and twisted, weaving through the air as if alive. As they zigzagged through the caverns, Jenna could feel cold drafts breathing down her neck, pursuing them as if the darkness itself had become their enemy. She sprinted, the echoes of laughter morphing into anguished cries. Worn stones crunched underfoot, remnants of those who had traveled this path before them. Each step forward felt like a step deeper into despair. "We can't stop," she panted, masking her own terror. Suddenly, a guttural shriek pierced the air. A small shape, all crooked limbs and pale skin, burst from the shadows. Jenna barely had time to process it before she thrust her children behind her, shielding them with her body. Jenna. Max's voice was shrill, panic bubbling over as the creature gnashed its sharpened teeth, its eyes blazing with hunger. Without thinking, Jenna lunged at it, a primal instinct kicking in. She tackled it to the ground, feeling the cold sweat on her skin mix with the dread-slick stone. But just as she was about to push it away, it cackled, sending chills through her. More will come. You can't escape. It screeched, thrashing beneath her. Adrenaline surged through her. Jenna scrambled to her feet, pulling both children up in the same motion. Keep going. She shouted, but fear was turning her words into echoes lost among the darkness. They stumbled deeper into the labyrinth, and the laughter morphed into something darker, taunting and aware. It chased from behind, whispering promises of despair, so close Jenna could almost feel its breath on her neck. We can't let them catch us. Jenna gasped between frantic breaths. With every turn they took, the cave twisted viciously around them. One wrong turn could lead them back into the grip of the cloaked figure. She felt desperation clawing at her throat, but they had to keep going. They were running out of time. The air thickened again as they entered another chamber, this one darker, swathed in shadows. And there, standing at the center, was a statue, a figure carved in archaic stone, arms raised as if trapped in eternal prayer. Mommy? Lily's tiny voice trembled. Stay behind me, Jenna breathed, her eyes scanning the space. A low rumble, almost a growl, reverberated through the chamber. There was no exit. They were trapped. The whispers intensified, creeping in from all sides, echoing tormented warnings. And just as her heart sank into the void, the ground beneath them started to tremble, fissures opening like hungry mouths. What now? Max cried, terror plastered across his face. Jenna's heart raced as realization hit hard. More will come, the shadowy figure's voice echoed, chilling her bones as the walls nodded in agreement. How do we break free? She shouted into the suffocating dark, desperately searching for a flicker of hope. Cold laughter surged and the whispers faded into silence. Then the statue's eyes blinked open, a sinister glow illuminating the darkness. Let the game commence. What awaited them next felt worse than any nightmare. Jenna's breath quickened as the stone statue loomed above them, its once inanimate eyes now glowing with a malevolent hunger. Every hair on her body stood on end. What do we do, Mommy? Max's voice trembled, clinging to her like a lifeline. Lily nestled into her side, wide-eyed, clenching her small fists. They're toying with us, Jenna whispered fiercely, determined not to show fear. We need to stay together. As the statue's mouth opened, the darkness thickened, wrapping around them like a suffocating coil. Jenna could feel it closing in, a chilling reminder of how easily everything could be lost. No more games. She shouted defiantly, echoing her heart's desperation. We will not play. The laughter responded, a chorus of mocking mirth that clawed at her sanity. With resolve coursing through her, Jenna grabbed her children's hands and sprinted toward the statue. If we can get past it, maybe we can find a way out. A burst of energy propelled her forward, each step reverberating powerfully, but as they approached, the statue began to twist, blocks of stone reshaping in terrifying ways. Jenna felt the earth shift beneath her, cracks opened wide enough to expose the abyss below them. Mommy! Lily cried, panic rising like bile in Jenna's throat, but she pressed on, urgency fueling her. Just as they reached the statue, it released a deafening roar, reverberating through the cavern, shaking the very ground they stood on. The world felt like it was fragmenting, seconds melted into an eternity, and all around them was a frenzied cartoon of light and dark. Jenna pushed forward with everything she had, their little feet stumbling over the wobbly stones. Protect each other. Don't look back. She squeezed out through clenched teeth, each word amplified by terror. Suddenly, shadows lunged at them, dark forms stretching like predators closing in on their prey. Jenna couldn't hesitate. She pulled her children past the statue and thrust herself into a narrow opening that led to yet another passage. It was cramped and cold, but there was nowhere else to go. The laughter faded, replaced by the frantic whispers of 1,000 lost souls swirling around them, begging for relief. Max stumbled but quickly caught his balance. "Are we safe?" he gasped, eyes darting wildly. "Not yet," Jenna said, determination hardening her voice. "We will find a way. We have to." They pressed onward, hearts thundering a collective beat of terror. The tunnel twisted and turned, narrowing with every stride, darkness creeping closer each second. They rounded a final bend, and before them lay a doorway, a shimmering portal shimmering with a light that felt warm and inviting, yet dangerous. "What's that?" Lily pointed, hope brightening her features. "Freedom," Jenna breathed, forcefully tugging her children closer. "Come on, you stay with me." Just as they approached, a flood of shadowy figures poured from the darkness, laughter morphing into wails, howls of surprise and rage. It pulsed through the air. Jenna felt every cry knocking against her chest. "Run!" she screamed, bolting for the glow. They barreled toward the doorway, and as they neared, tendrils of shadow grasped for them, tearing at their clothes, flinging embers of fear into the very marrow of their bones. Jenna tugged harder, propelling them through the storm. In a final surge of desperation, she flung herself and her children into the blinding light, praying it would absorb them whole. Sudden silence enveloped them. They stumbled onto soft grass, bathed in the warmth of dawn. Jenna's breath came in uneven gasps as they landed on the ground, the proximity of light flooding their senses with fierce energy. She blinked against the brightness, her heart racing still. They were outside, but the fear didn't dissipate, it lingered. "We did it," Lily whispered, but uncertainly, looking around the familiar peaks of their suburban street. Jenna crouched down to embrace them both, holding tight, feeling the warmth of her children grounding her amidst the pressure of what they'd escaped. Yet, as she looked around, dread knotted deep within her. Their community remained, but something about it felt different. The houses stood unchanged, yet shadows flicked behind the curtains, eyes watching from familiar vantage points. No, Jenna's breath hitched, realizing the stakes were worse than ever. The worst of the darkness wasn't physical, it had seeped into the foundations of their lives, transforming neighbors into shapes of fear and quiet dread. It was still there, lurking just beyond reach. "Mommy, we need to go home," Max murmured, breaking the quiet despair. "Home," Jenna echoed, mind racing. "We will. But we need to be careful. Very careful." As they turned to walk toward their house, Jenna infused her steps with determination, knowing she had to protect her children from the darkness still pooling at the edges of their lives. She felt their hearts beat together, a rhythmic defiance against the shadows willing to reclaim them, and with each step they took, the memories flooded back of the whispers, the laughter lost in despair. But they would not succumb, not now. Jenna vowed it as she led her children to their front door, ready to reclaim their safe space, ready to face whatever shadows lingered just ahead. In the depths of despair, they would find hope, they would confront it all together. Jenna stepped over the threshold, closing the door behind them, securing it with the weight of all her love and a promise whispered in the dark: they would survive. Now was the time to become the light in an ever-encroaching darkness. They would be vigilant and unyielding. No shadow could claim them now, but a whisper followed through the cracks of the door, reverberating through the stillness inside. "You're still mine," it crooned, lingering long after the last sound faded, a reminder that battles never truly end. Jenna held her children closer, determination shining within her heart. The fight for their home was just beginning. Now that you've reached the end of this wild journey, make sure you don't miss any future stories. You need to subscribe now to the channel. Don't wait even one more second. Smash that like button to feed the algorithm, your support matters. Flood the comments section and let me know your thoughts and theories about this final chapter. And be a good friend, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to dive into this conclusion. Let us keep the conversation going together.